Welcome to this poetry video on Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night by Dylan Thomas. First, to begin, I want you to look at this image and just hear the phrase, "Don't go into the light." What comes to mind? Based on this, what do you think the themes of the poem might be? What might happen? Who might the characters of the poem be? Let's look at the poem. Now, I'm not going to read it to you just yet. I'm going to talk about context first, but what I really want you to do is check out this video here. It's a collection of scenes from the movie Interstellar, as the poem is read in the movie Interstellar, and it's read by Anthony Hopkins. There's also versions of Michael Caine reading it as well. So please check out this video first, because Anthony Hopkins reads it so much better than I do, and we're not related. Anyway, a bit of context. So Dylan Thomas was born in Wales in 1914. His dad was a school headmaster. Now, Dylan Thomas was kind of scared of his dad, but he loved him and revered him a lot. Dylan Thomas's dad loved literature, and he actually instilled that love into Dylan Thomas. Thomas began writing from an early age, and he even managed to publish his first book of poetry at the age of 20, with help from famous authors and poets, including T.S. Eliot, very famous poet. Dylan Thomas had breathing problems from an early age. He actually got out of fighting in World War II because of it. He married quite young. He didn't really like his wife, and he then became an alcoholic. He drank a lot, so much so that his drinking is what's attributed to his early death. At the age of 39, he had a stroke. Now, he wrote the poem Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night in 1947, and it's thought to be about his dying father, as he references his father in the last stanza. So, going through the poem now and looking at its themes, I'll read it quickly. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had fought no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men, the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in Green Bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight, and learned too late they grieved it on its way, do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men, near death, who see with blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my father, there on sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. So we can see the poem written to his father is telling him in the first stanza, or tercet, to not go gentle into that good night, to fight, to not die, basically. Do not go into the light. And the next four tercets, or stanzas, these 3-line stanzas, are about different types of men who put up a fight before they die. And finally, he ends with a bit more acceptance, saying how, don't go gently, put up a fight, but I understand. Now, the theme of the poem is quite obvious, I think. Death is one of the major themes. That time is limited, that we should fight for life. We should not go down without a fight. We need to ensure that we have this meaningful life and fight for it, and not just go gently. If you found any other themes, please let me know in the comments. Now, let's talk about the structure. It's a complicated one, this one. It is a villanelle. A villanelle is a type of poem that consists of 19 lines like this. It's split into 5 3-line stanzas called tercets, and then a quatrain at the end. It's a very controlled, difficult poem to write. You'll see as well the rhyme scheme, ABA, 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 ABAA for the final stanza. And you'll see how the lines are repeated. The first and third line of the first tercet or stanza are repeated throughout. The first line is repeated in the second and fourth, and then finally in the quatrain at the end. And the final line of the first stanza is repeated in the third and fifth stanza, as well as at the quatrain at the end. So again, very, very difficult type of poem to write. It's very controlled, and that might be why Dylan Thomas chose to pick this type of poem, and I'll explain why at the end of the video. Also, quickly, the poem is written in iambic pentameter. Iambic pentameter, to sum it up briefly, is a form of meter often used in blank verse and poetry and rhyme verse. Shakespeare uses it often in many of his plays and his sonnets. If you watch the video on Ozymandias, that uses iambic pentameter. To sum it up as briefly as I can, an iamb is a 2-syllable foot. So there are 2 syllables, and in that foot, with these 2 syllables, the stress, the sound which is stressed more, the syllable which is stressed more, comes as the second syllable. So you'll see from the example with the pirate, I am, a pie, wrote with, a wood, and leg. You can see the stress is on the second syllable of each foot. Now, penta, coming from the word five, meaning 5, there are 5 of these 2-syllable feet. So there are 10 syllables in each line. Each syllable is a pair with an unstressed and a stressed. Sounds a bit like a heartbeat, don't you think? Da-dum, 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 da-dum. That's why it's often used. They're often used in sonnets. It's kind of romantic. Yeah, well, there will be lots of other videos explaining this, but that's a brief definition of what an iambic pentameter is. So let's break this down stanza by stanza. We've got the first stanza or tercet here. It begins, do not go gentle into that good night, the name of the poem itself. It starts with an imperative, an order. Do not do this. Probably makes you think of your parents or your teachers. Do not go gentle into that good night. Good night, of course, being a metaphor for death, but it is a nice metaphor. It's not an unpleasant one, so there is a kind of sense of understanding that death isn't something completely horrible. It's just that long sleep, and there is a bit of positivity there. There's also some consonants with the N and the T. Do not, gentle, into, and night. It makes it sound a lot more passionate. It makes that order sound a lot more passionate. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. So burn and rave is a piece of assonance. So you can hear those long vowel sounds, burn and rave. You can hear the long vowel sounds that make it sound like a fight almost. And then at close of day is another metaphor. Finally, in the last line, rage is repeated. Rage also has violent connotations. It is very fightful. It's fightful language. Against the dying of the light, another nice metaphor for death. And we have as well some more assonance, long I sounds, dying and light. Even the vowels in this stanza won't go down without putting up a fight. Now, I'm not going to keep analysing the first and second lines because they're repeated throughout, but we'll move on to the second stanza. So, as I said before, the first stanza is an order to his father, and the final stanza, the quatrain at the end, is also directly to his father. But the 4 tercets or stanzas in between are about other people. They're about other different types of men who fight death. It explains their motivation for doing so in parallel structure. So this one begins with wise men. At their end, no dark is right. So these wise men understand their own mortality. They know that death is an inevitability. It's going to happen. But because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. So this is a metaphor here, because these wise men haven't made a difference in life. They haven't forked lightning. They haven't changed the world in any way. Because of that, they do not go gentle into that good night. Now, it's important to note here and in other stanzas that this line and the rage against the dying of the light, it's not an order, it's not an imperative. It's a description of how these men face death. Because they haven't left their imprint on the world, they face death with a fight. They do not go gently, but it's not an order to his father. We'll move on to the next stanza. Good men this time, the last wave, by crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage against the dying of the light. Again, the final line is not an order, but it's describing these good men. It has a regretful tone, this. We have words like might have, and their frail deeds, which has connotations with weak, could have been bright, which has connotations with visibility, everyone can see, holiness, purity. Again, we have another metaphor for death, the last wave, and also danced in a green bay. Green is a very calming colour. What might be important about that? No anxiety, maybe. Could even be fertility, nature. What do you think could be important about that green colour? Again, let me know in the comments. We have this one here, this stanza, with a bit of illusion. So I'll go through it. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight and learned too late they grieved on it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Talking about wild men, caught and sang the sun in flight. This is a metaphor for their living in pursuit of reckless joy. These are the kind of men who just do as they please. The renegades. They act wildly in pursuit of like simple happiness whenever they want it. Reckless joy. And they grieved it on its way. A metaphor for regretting the time they spent chasing that joy, chasing that kind of shallow, I guess, superficial joy. Fast cars, rock and roll, having fun, you know. However, there is a bit of illusion there. I don't know if any of you are aware of the story about Icarus, the Greek story about the chappie who made wings with his dad. So there you go, there's even connection there, son and dad. Made wings out and put them together with wax, and he flew too close to the sun. The wax melted, the wings came apart, and Icarus fell and died. So there's allusion to that. These men who pursue the sun, get too close to it, and then end up regretting that pursuit of the sun. So I like that allusion there. The next stanza, grave men. Oh, this is good, because grave has two meanings. It's a bit of wordplay here. Grave can mean serious, but it can also mean, you know, dying. Oh, Siri, go away. It can also mean where people are dying. So grave is obviously where we bury dead bodies. So we've got grave men, serious men, near death, who see with blinding sight. Blinding sight is an oxymoron here. Now obviously these old men on their deathbed probably don't have the best eyesight, but they have insight. Because they're old, they're wise, they see life more clearly. And I thought that was a really good oxymoron there. And then we've got blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. This is similarly for happy. Even people with blind can still be happy. Like these wise, these serious men who didn't find happiness. Siri, stop it. These serious men who didn't find happiness in life now are saying, you know, even the blind could be happy. Even the blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. There's also some assonance there, the A sound, and the adds to the, you know, the blind connecting happiness. So we've got the BL, the consonants, the same sound, blah, blah, and the A, and that connects, you know, blindness and blaze and happiness to light, basically. And then obviously the final line, which is how these men approach death. They rage against it. And then we have the final stanza, the quatrain at the end. He says, "And you, my father, there on sad height." So he directly addresses his father here. There on sad height, metaphor. I see this, my interpretation, the cliff of death. This is where you look over and you confront one's death. You accept death. We have another oxymoron here. Curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. I feel like curse and bless, obviously they are opposites, but I feel it just adds to this passion. He doesn't care in what form the passion takes, providing he approaches death with a sense of passion. Curse, bless me now with your fierce tears. There's some assonance there. We've got the same vowel sound, which just adds to the passion. And I pray, some begging, religious imagery and some begging there. Now this is really important here. The last two lines, do not go gentle into that good night, rage against the dying of the light. Now when we saw it in the first stanza, it's an order. It's basically saying do not die, do not go into that light. But now when we put the two lines together, it completely changes its meaning. What it's saying now is, you know, I accept your death, but do not go gentle. Put up a fight as you die. So it's accepting, but he's saying not to do it without a fight. Siri, you're getting on my nerves now, mate. And then finally, I just want to talk briefly about the form interpretation. Now, it is such a controlled poetic structure. The villanelle we can see here, we can see the full poem on the left, and we can see sort of definition and explanation of the villanelle on the right. Perhaps because of the strong controlled poetic structure, Dylan Thomas is trying to show a strong desire to have control over death. I like this interpretation of the form. Let me know if you have any others. Thank you for watching, guys.